What's up? This is Mike Pinto, and you are listening to the Bradley's House podcast.
Nothing is impossible, but certain things are highly improbable. I don't think I'll meet your kind again, not in this lifetime.
Hello, everybody. Come on in, grab a seat, make yourself at home as you should when you're a guest in Bradley's house. I am your co-host, Jarett Orr. She is the executive director of the Nowell Family Foundation, and our host, Ms. Kellie Nowell. Kellie, how are you tonight?
I'm doing very good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm super excited. Get another episode out now. Kellie, we just released last week Mike Pinto, and that was episode 20 already of Bradley's House. We're already
Crazy.
20 episodes in.
Wow.
Yeah, and we get a ton of comments and questions and remarks, and I realized that people know a lot about our guests each week. You do an amazing job interviewing them. I already told you, you're like the Larry King of the podcast world. But I don't think people know enough about the us getting started here and where the foundation is and where Bradley's house is. So I said, let's take a pause on the guests for a week and let's just kind of talk a little bit about the podcast and a little bit about Bradley's house and the foundation and some of the things that are going on.
I think it's a great idea. Absolutely.
All right, so let's start right from the beginning, Kellie. You just nonstop messaging me about wanting to do a podcast.
I don't really remember it going down that way. Yeah, it was a little different. So you and I were Facebook friends and had chit-chatted back and forth over the years. Not much, but just a little bit here and there. And then I got a message from you, I want to say it was like September, October, something like that, of 2020. And you asked if I would be interested in doing a podcast about Bradley's house. And initially my thought was, of course not. I don't have time. I have no desire. There's nothing about that request that makes me want to say yes. So I really just sort of thought, okay, well, I'll tell him I'm going to consider it. I'll think about it and just sort of delay it a week so that I could let you down easily. And then I made the fatal mistake of agreeing to a phone call. So the phone call with you, I always tell people, don't underestimate Jarett. He is quite a salesman. But the phone call was what did it for me. And that was when you really sort of laid out how the podcast could benefit the foundation and Bradley's house. And that's my weakness. So, anything that I can do to help the foundation, obviously, I'm happy to do. And after talking with you, and then the more I thought about it, I realized this really would be a great opportunity to help spread the word, help encourage donations, and just reach people in a different way that we weren't already reaching them. And so I couldn't find enough reasons why not to.
And you're so amazing at it. That's the best part. It's so funny that people don't realize. People are like, wow, Kellie is so great at this. I'm so happy you guys did this. And I'm like, I had to bend her arm. I twisted her arm. I begged, I pleaded, I held my breath. I did pretty much everything that you have to do. And then she's like, well, I don't know. And then you get on and you're just like, fucking amazing. Great interviews, great guests, fun conversation, all the comments. Everybody loves Kellie, and that's fine. It's okay. But,
well, and I'll tell you the same thing I tell everyone else, and that's you make it easy for me. So you are so great at talking. That was one thing I realized on our first conversation was that you were really good at talking. Small talk stresses me out. And so I was worried that it was just going to be a bunch of small talk and I wouldn't know what to say. But after talking with you, I'm like, well, I may not know what to say, but Jarett seems like he would. So let's give it a try. I should also mention that the original plan was to do it every 2 weeks. And so even though I was like, I have no time for this, there's absolutely no way I can fit it into my schedule, I thought, well, every 2 weeks for 1 hour, how can I say no to that? And then what was it, 3 months before you said we need to go every week? So that was very sly how you did that, but it worked out. And to be totally honest, I'm having a blast. I'm enjoying talking with people, and even people that I know really closely. It's different. We don't usually sit around and talk about, their past history with my brother and Sublime and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really enjoyable for me too, to get to hear things from people that I wouldn't have otherwise heard, and stories that I wasn't aware of, and not to mention all the wonderful guests that we've had. So it's been a lot of fun for me, and I just feel really fortunate. So thank you, Jarett.
No, Kelly, thank you. I'm also having a blast talking to a lot of cool people. And I think that going into this, I really thought that this was going to be like a super heavily influenced, lots of music talk with a little bit of kind of recovery twist. And it's been so amazing that it's kind of been the exact opposite of that. And I think that's been absolutely amazing. I mean, these stories that we've heard from just some of the guests that we've had on, I mean, I get off of these calls and I'm like, holy shit, that's like inspirational. And like, I mean, you could probably write an amazing movie on Ken Denson's life.
Right?
An amazing movie.
Oh my gosh, completely.
And just so to hear some of these stories and the triumph, and to understand has really been enlightening for me. And I think that a lot of people have really been enjoying it. And I knew that people would enjoy this podcast. I don't know why. I don't know how. I mean, I knew why. Obviously, Sublime and the Knowell Family Foundation and the music and the message and Bradley's house that's trying to get built. And so I knew there was enough to talk about why it would, but I didn't realize that we'd be getting messages and tagged in posts and getting emails from people that are like, wow, I was really going through a rough time and the show has really helped me out. And I shared the show with somebody who was to know that, because we do this and we get on here and we have fun and we goof around and we talk to awesome guests and hear really cool stories, but just to know that we're doing that and in some way that's helping other people, that's been such an amazing gift for me.
Yeah, it's really powerful. I always say everybody has a story. The person you're standing next to in line at the grocery store has a story. The person who just cut you off in traffic has a story. We all have stories. We all have things we're dealing with, things that we've gone through. And what I love about this podcast is that we have the opportunity to really talk with people and get to know their stories and get to know where they've come from. And it gives me such an appreciation for who they are now. And I've said this before, I have tremendous respect for anyone that's in recovery, because it is such a difficult process. It is such a difficult daily fight. And so, to me, it's not about how many times you relapse, how many times you fail. It's about how many times you get back up. And it sounds so trite, but it's true. It's such a struggle. And, from my perspective, if Brad had just been able to get up one more time, he might still be here. So anybody who's able to do that, I have tremendous respect for. So I love that we have had the opportunity to talk with so many people who are in recovery, who can share their stories about how they got there and how life is now. And it inspires me. It really inspires me, and it drives me to keep going. Some days are difficult. I work a full-time job in addition to running the foundation. So some days I just come home and I'm tired and I don't want to do anything. And, but hearing these stories reminds me why we're doing what we're doing and how important it is and how vital it is. And so it's just one more thing that really helps to encourage me. And the fact that other people are encouraged by it is just a huge bonus. But I feel really, really fortunate to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the outpouring and the comments and the shares and the likes, and it's It's been overwhelming. Now, guys, throughout this episode, you're probably going to hear me mention a few of our other episodes, guests like Ken Denson. You can find all of our episodes in the archives on YouTube by finding the Bradley's House page. You can also find us anywhere that podcasts are downloaded, iTunes and Google. You can even visit the knowellfamilyfoundation.org and click on the podcast link, and there's links there. So if you guys are just catching up now, and I know I've seen a lot of comments over the last few weeks of people that have just found the podcast, dig back in the archives and check out some of these interviews, because they've been with amazing musicians and people that work with the foundation, people that have known Brad and people that were inspired with Brad. And Kellie's been able to just line up some amazing guests for us. And we've also had some amazing sponsors and supporters that you've heard Kellie speak about throughout the time on the show, people that have helped the foundation, people that have helped out the show, people that have bought merchandise. And you guys need to know that all of that money goes directly towards the foundation. So when you hear a sponsor on this show, that's not for Kellie and I. This all goes to the foundation. We're all working together to get Bradley's House up and built. And I know a lot of people ask constantly, well, where's it going to be? When's it going to happen? Trust me, the foundation wants to know all of those answers as well. I know COVID's kind of sidetracked everything. It was like just as the momentum was picking up, the world kind of stopped. But the foundation didn't stop. And the little things that the foundation could do during those times didn't stop. Things like the Day of Giving and pin sales and things like that. And Kellie, everybody asks all the time kind of, where are we at? How do we get Bradley's House built? What is the ultimate goal and how close to it are we?
Excellent question. So when we first started this, honestly, I thought it would happen a lot sooner, but I'm totally okay with it, because along this journey, I've learned so much and I've seen so much, and it's given me a whole new appreciation for what we're doing and why we're doing it. But so our budget to open and operate for the first year, assuming that there's no revenue generated whatsoever, that everybody who comes through our doors has no means of support, and if everything had to come from revenue that has been generated through the foundation, we would need about $750,000. And so right now we are at about almost $175,000. So we started about 4 years ago in July of 2017, and really had no idea what we were going to do. I mean, it was just sort of hey, we feel like this is something that needs to happen, that isn't available already, and we have a passion for it and might be able to have some connections or some name recognition or something. So let's just start this and see what we can do. And that was it. I mean, it was there's no big, hey, I've got this great experience or whatever. It was just, we feel like this is something we can do, and so we have a responsibility to do it. So we started without any real, idea of how we were going to make it happen. And it's just organically developed over the last almost 4 years into this wonderful, beautiful thing that so many people are a part of, whether it's because they've purchased some merchandise, or like you mentioned, they've, sponsored the podcast or come to a show, or all these different things, or even just made a donation. Like there's just so many ways that people have come together, and it really reinforces to me that this is a group effort. Like this is not something that we could do on our own. I mean, the sublime money does not come to the Knowell family. So my father and I are just doing this and giving of our time and our energies and any, potential connections or name recognition that we might have to make this happen. And all in Brad's memory, of course, and to honor him, but also to help people who are struggling in a unique situation. Because I do think that struggling with addiction as a musician or any type of an artist really does present some unique challenges. And so if we can help those people, I just feel like it's a small niche, and it might just be a drop in the bucket, but at least it's something. It's the same reason why we throw our cans into a recycle bin. Do I think that's going to save the world? No, but at least it's one little thing that I can do. And so that's just kind of how we see this. This is just something that that we can do. And if we can, pull together all the resources and make it happen, then to me, that's super exciting. And really in the spirit of Sublime and Brad. And, they were very grassroots, selling albums out of their trunk. And, so it was never, they weren't this boy band that was, created overnight. They were just some guys that wanted to play music and made it happen. And so I love the fact that we're really doing it in the same spirit as well. But, that also means that we're sort of at the mercy of the people that want to give or want to be a part of it. But for me personally, it's been incredibly gratifying to see how many people do want to be a part of it and do want to play a role, however big or small. So it's been very, very humbling and very healing for me also. So I'm really excited.
It's amazing, the outpouring of people, and you see it growing more. It's that snowball effect. And I think that you touched on something that is important for people to understand. And it's nothing to do with anything other than how the record business is and was. But that name Sublime does make money, but there are a lot of people that have to make money off of that name. And as it sits right now, the majority of those people aren't the people that are working on that board in the Knowell Family Foundation. It's people from all different types of walks of life. So the money that has raised has genuinely been raised and earned through the foundation working and selling merchandise and going through all the different things that you've done. And, obviously in time, the goal for the Knowell Family Foundation is to have anyone and everyone on board that can help out. But right now, you guys have an awesome team, and I think it's important for everybody to understand how hard everybody has worked to start from, like you said, an idea amongst some people that said, hey, this is something that we should really do. It took an idea to, $175,000 towards a goal to do something that's going to have a lifetime of impact. That's amazing.
Absolutely. And what's been really exciting for me is these opportunities that pop up from places that I could have never predicted. 2 years ago, I could have never predicted that we would have an album out of Sublime covers. And, it's just somebody having an idea and saying, hey, this is something I can do. Is it okay if I do this for you? And, that's really how the house that Bradley built came about. Was Paul Milbury from Law Records just approaching me and saying, hey, we can do this and donate the proceeds to the foundation. What do you think? And, it's all these little, I could have never done that. I could have absolutely never created an album like that. And Paul and everyone at Law Records just threw so much of their time and talents into it and came up with this incredibly wonderful thing that, will outlive us all. Just this collection of great covers and this tribute to the band and to Brad and, all these wonderful things that have happened because of it. And I feel very, very blessed to be a part of it.
An amazing record. And if you guys have listened to any of the previous 20 episodes, you've heard this incredible compilation get brought up. It is available at law-records.com, the house that Bradley built. You can also catch it on our YouTube page, Bradley's House. I know Law Records has a YouTube page, and they have a bunch of the songs listed. This is just another way that you guys can be a part of the foundation and help get closer to having Bradley's House built. And you also get this badass collection of over 50 songs. So the house that Bradley built has been something that's been a huge part of this. Now, Kelly, I know we've talked a little bit about it in pieces in the past, and I know you've mentioned it in other interviews, but for our listeners right now, and you don't have to get crazy in depth, but just give a small insight on what the vision of Bradley's House is going to be like.
Well, the initial idea that we started with was just to help people in the music industry who are struggling with addiction. And that sort of grew into this idea of having a treatment facility where we could help people free of charge. And that's where we sort of came up with the idea for Bradley's House. And so it will be a 6-bed treatment facility with a a 1-week medical detox in a medical facility, and then a 90-day treatment program in the house, and then a transition into sober living, and continued participation and giving back and paying it forward, and creating a community of musicians that can support each other and encourage their sobriety, and at the same time still promote the music, but also be able to give people that are struggling with addiction a chance, and so that was sort of the start of it all. But honestly, as we've gone, it's gotten bigger. Like, my vision for it has gotten a lot larger, and the first step is going to be opening Bradley's House. But I really hope that we can go beyond that and have a Bradley's House, all across the country and in every state, and be able to serve, have facilities for men and for women, and just I really feel like there's such a need, and it's such a population that a lot of times doesn't get the help that they need because they're struggling financially, trying to get their music career off the ground, or they're, they feel like they're ashamed and they don't want it to hurt their career, or they feel like there's no hope, or like so many reasons why people specifically in the music industry struggle. And as a fan, I think we all have a responsibility to help those people. A lot of times we look at the people that have made tons of money in the music industry and we're like, oh, they're so lucky, it's so great. But for every single person that's been hugely successful in the music industry, there are thousands and tens of thousands of really talented people that never made it onto the radio or never made it onto your playlist because they struggle with addiction and they couldn't get the help that they need. So I think it's just one more way that we as human beings can help each other and say, these are these artists that I love, and maybe it's an artist that we don't know yet. Maybe it's an artist we're all going to love in 3 to 5 years, but they need the help now, or we may never even hear them. So I really feel like it's an opportunity to help people in that niche market, but that's where we can make a difference. If I wish that I could just help everybody all at once, but obviously that's unrealistic. So we're just trying to find that one niche where we can make a difference, and it makes me so thrilled to know that there's so many other people that feel the same way, so that we're doing it all together, because I certainly could never make this happen on my own. My dad could never make it happen on his own. Even our board could never make it happen on their own. It requires help from everybody, and it always will, because we're a nonprofit and we offer the services free of charge, and so we're always going to need funding and need people who feel so strongly and passionately about music that they want to help the people that create it.
And there's such a need for it. And again, like you said, I know you guys would like to be able to help everybody, but starting somewhere is starting somewhere. And exactly. You guys are obviously in a genre and a niche that, is close to your heart. But a lot of times you hear people and they'll say, oh gosh, another recovery facility, another rehab facility. Well, just last week in the news, I don't know if you saw the story about football player Colt Brennan. Colt Brennan he went to the University of Hawaii. At one point, he still may be, to be honest with you, but he was the all-time leading touchdown. He threw more touchdowns than any quarterback in the history of college football. Wow. He didn't make it. Yeah, he didn't make it in the pros, but he had a absolute legendary career at the University of Hawaii. And on Tuesday night, his dad took him to a rehab facility in Huntington Beach that had no beds open. And he went to the local hospital, the emergency room, I guess, which is where they were waiting. And Wednesday morning, they found him dead. And
no.
So literally hours. It was hours away, but no beds were open, and he, still had access to whatever he had access to, and whatever the situation was. But yeah, he died the next day after not being able to be admitted because there wasn't a bed available.
That is heartbreaking.
Yeah. So just to think that, there's another place that's coming in that can help and that can be of service and that's going to do it the right way. I think that's an amazing thing and something that the world obviously needs. So for anybody who's thinking that, they can just hear that story right there and know that was how close he could have been. And and he was a young man. He has to be my age, maybe younger.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think it's absolutely amazing that you guys have seen that and had that vision, and that's I just wanted all of the listeners to kind of have an idea of what we're doing and why we're doing it, because a lot of times they hear us, we're just having a good time, right? We've got a guest on that either you knew or you didn't know, and they hear us laughing and we're joking. And yes, obviously the point of this podcast for you, the listener, is to be entertained and hopefully maybe informed and learn something and gain some knowledge. I know I've learned a shitload on this podcast from all of our different guests, but the ultimate goal is to help the Knowell Family Foundation get Bradley's house open, and that's what we're doing. We're spreading the word about the foundation, and we're spreading the word from stories from folks that will be in situations like those that'll be in the foundation, and people that'll be helping at Bradley's house. And that is why this podcast was started. That's why we do it each week. And I know you hear us briefly talk about it, and it just kind of sounds like a commercial, like, hey, go buy some swag, get some T-shirts, and get some, but that is literally how the foundation is getting closer to being able to put this house up. And I say it all the time, I'm just a fan. That's all I am. I'm a fan who gets to come on here and have a good time and help spread this word. But as a fan, knowing that when I'm sharing the show and I'm buying a hat or a T-shirt or whatever it may be, that I am taking part. I have my own little piece. And when that house is built, I'll be able to take a little bit of ownership in that. I'll be able to say, see that little tiny corner brick right there on the left, that little end of the brick? I probably helped put that there. That was probably me. And I think that as a Sublime fan, that is something that is so cool. So for all of you guys that are listening and you're enjoying the show and you're doing everything that you can, we thank you so much. But realistically, every little bit helps. And so whether it's sharing the show and letting someone else know about it so they can hear this message and get something from the show, and then in return, we have some ways that you guys can show your support. You can show your support at the knowellfamilyfoundation.org. There's really some awesome merch on there. And the cool thing about this is that purchasing that merch is just like making a donation. So you get yourself an awesome hat or a hoodie or a pair of socks, T-shirts, all sorts of neat merchandise on there. And every single penny of it goes directly to the Knowell Family Foundation. Guys, order a lot of it. They've got a professional packing team. They've got a giant warehouse facility with a huge row of people that are packaging these things up and sending them out on big freight line. That's not right, Kelly?
No, it's me and Brindy Pepper, who's one of our loyal board members who has put in so much work to make this foundation happen over the years. And she and I get together, and sometimes my kids help, and we pack merch orders at my kitchen table. That's our big fancy merchandise. But one thing I was thinking about when you were talking about that is that if there are millions of Sublime fans, and if only 1 million of them each gave $1 a year, we could open and operate Bradley's house indefinitely. Now, obviously, we're not at that point where we're reaching 1 million people. But if anybody ever feels like, I don't know if my $5 donation really makes a difference, or if my $100 donation makes a difference, it does, because you're making up for all those people that we haven't reached yet. So it's just all that little stuff adds up, and it does make a huge difference. And I really hope that everybody who buys a piece of merch or donates some money or shares the post or whatever, I really hope they do feel like they're part of it, because they truly are. And I wish I knew more ways to express that to people, how this is not something that we're doing and we'll let you help out. It's like we are doing this with you. We're doing this together. We're all making this happen, and it really is a group effort. And one thing that I really hope we do too is to help people understand a little bit more about addiction, because I do think there's so much misunderstanding, especially from people who don't struggle with it. They feel like, well, it's a choice. That person is choosing to do that drug or choosing to take that drink. When in reality, people who struggle with the disease of addiction don't have a choice. And to be able to overcome that takes so much strength. And I think that's where a lot of the respect that I have for them comes from. And so I hope that we see it in our lifetime where people in general recognize the struggle of addiction. If someone has cancer or diabetes or, any other difficult disease, those of us who don't have that, we try as much as we can to empathize with them. We understand that they're going through a struggle. We recognize that, but we can't fully appreciate the challenge because we're not going through it ourselves. And I do believe that it's the same way with addiction, and it's unfortunately too easy to discount the struggle that someone's going through, but it's just as difficult, if not more so, because you're having to overcome everything that your mind and your body is telling you. And it's such a huge thing. And so one thing that I've realized, especially since starting this podcast, is that we have the ability to really help influence the way that people think about it as well. So I hope that we're reaching people not just within the music community, but extending beyond that too. And, people in recovery or friends and family members of people in recovery to help to support them as well. So I really see this as an opportunity to make differences in a lot of other areas too, and not just in the people directly that we help through the house.
For sure. So you mean to tell me that if John from Kentucky or Lisa from Long Island purchases a hat or a hoodie, it's getting packaged directly by you and sent to them?
Yes, it is, with my hot little hands.
Think about that, guys. Think about that. I'm just throwing it out there. So you want to jump in on this now before that big facility opens that I was telling you about, the warehouse. Right now, it is hands-on at the NowellFamilyFoundation.org. And of course, guys.
I write a note on each packing list too. It used to be a little bit more because, when we first started and didn't have as many merch orders, every time we got an order, I was like, oh my gosh, an order. And so I'd write, this little note on there and try to really personalize it. And now, we try to pack merch orders once a week. Sometimes it goes 2 or 3 if things are really crazy. But so we'll have, 50 to 100 orders to do in one evening or one morning or whatever it is that we're sitting down to do it. So I don't have the time or the hand strength to write as much as I used to for each one, but I do sign every single packing list. And it's not because I think there's anything special about me signing it. I want people to understand that they're a part of it and that we recognize them and that we appreciate them and that they are just as big a part of what we're doing as we are. So, we all have a part to play. And so for as long as I can, I'm going to keep signing those packing lists.
You are so modest. There's times where people post on social media and I don't even know what the fuck they bought because all they're showing is the fact that they got a little personalized note from you, and that's their favorite part of it. And you've got such perfect penmanship, and everybody shares the little notes from you, and I think it's so. No, it's people that don't realize how much work that actually goes into this, and from you and the entire board and the foundation, like you said, you got Brindy there from the board and she's helping you, and you guys are Lucy and Ethel packing away the chocolates, and so I think it's amazing that you do that, and I think it's great that people get to know that and understand what it means and how much work is being put into trying to get Bradley's house open, and that's why albums are being made and T-shirts are being sold and podcasts are being put out, and that's what we're doing here for you guys, and that's how we got this thing going. Now, Kelly, it would be crazy if we didn't take a second to talk about what else happened on that first phone call that we had, because after I told you my idea for a podcast and how I thought it could help the foundation and how I thought it could be a great link to the fans and how much fun it would be, the next thing that you kind of asked was, well, okay, but what about actually getting a podcast out? I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it rather than just talking. And I said, lucky for you, I come with somebody pretty special.
Boy, and that was an understatement. That was definitely an understatement.
Correct. And my amazingly beautiful fiance and our producer, Anna, who works so hard to make sure that this show sounds good and it gets out, and she puts in music and she eliminates a lot of stuff. Guys, you're missing all sorts of shit that I say that Kelly doesn't let make into the podcast. Just to
true.
All right. So
She
sometimes
makes us all sound good. And we don't always give her like 3 weeks to, put the show together and get it posted. Sometimes we do it right before it needs to be uploaded. And she's always so wonderful and so gracious. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because Anna is wonderful and she is the unsung hero of this podcast for sure.
Yeah, there would be no show without her. And it's funny, because her and I, we actually met because of podcasting, which was one of my earlier shows that I did. And, Kelly, the first time I pitched a podcast, I pitched it and I knew I killed it. I knew he was going to say yes. And he said, all right, let's give it a shot. Let's do a podcast. And I said, awesome. And then I hung up and I realized, fuck, I don't know how to make a podcast. I've downloaded a few, and I didn't really know that I was going to get this far. And so I had a buddy who was like, yeah, dude, I can watch a few YouTube videos and I'm sure we can make a podcast. And he actually did a halfway decent job. And then one day I got a message from this girl, and she was like, hey, your podcast is really great. I love it. I listen to every episode. The sound's kind of shitty. And if you ever need some help with that, I went to school and I was, I'm taught to do that. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, lady, leave me alone. We're not doing this. And now here we are, and she is my partner in all things podcast, and we have 2 amazing shows that would absolutely positively never be shows without her. So if it wasn't for Anna, guys, there would be no Bradley's House for you guys to enjoy. There would be no YouTube page for you to go and find all of the stuff on. And so it would be crazy for me not to take a second to thank her.
Absolutely. She's done amazing things for this podcast. And I have to say, she's really an awesome human being, which makes me even happier, because I feel like through this whole process, not only have we created a podcast, but I personally feel super fortunate that I have created amazing friendships with you and with Anna. I could take it or leave it, but Anna, I really like. Just kidding.
Right. It's okay, because I feel the same way about me and Anna in our relationship. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think it's that great, but she's pretty cool to have around. So
yeah. So you're replaceable, but she's not.
For sure. I tell her all the time. I'm like, listen, Kelly and I can know the guests, and we can, listen, in all fairness, okay, we did have a joined conference call that I did put together. I patched that call together. So I was very...
all by yourself.
Right. Yeah. I was merging fucking call. Merge it. You're damn right. Click it. Boom. We're merged. Are we all on the line here? Great. I set that up. So I don't want to toot my own horn, but I was able to make that happen. But yeah, it was, I tell her all the time that, we would have no show without, I wouldn't even know the first thing to do. I don't know if you just go to youtube.com and start yelling at it, podcast. I don't know. I would never be able to get anything up. She knows all the technical stuff, and
she's great. She's
yes,
the brains and the beauty, and she has all these incredible hidden talents that I keep discovering. I think about really on average, once a month, I discover some incredible talent that Anna has. She's just fabulous. So you scored with that one.
Yeah, she does all sorts of cool shit. She knows about all sorts of bugs and weird things, and it's pretty interesting because she says all the time, she's like, yeah, but I only know about useless things. And I'm like, yeah, but I only know about useless things, but we don't know about the same useless things. So we're constantly filling each other in on complete bullshit that means absolutely nothing. I'm like, you see the tire on that truck? They stopped making that tire in 2017 because the tread wear. And she's like, yeah, actually that bug right there, it's, if you notice that. And I'm just like, what are we doing here right now? But yeah, so we know all sorts of, but you know what, on a Family Feud or some sort of game show of where you need to know useless stuff.
Would rock it.
Oh my God, we would kill it.
Yeah.
We would absolutely.
And she's an incredibly talented musician and dancer, and she's brilliant. And I feel like we could make a whole episode about Anna because I think we might be her biggest fans.
Yes, I know for a fact that we are. So, guys, that's kind of how our team shakes out here. Yep. You wonder what the team looks like at Bradley's house. It's the three of us.
I think people would be interested to know too that I've never even actually met you and Anna in person, and we're all in different corners of this continent. So, I'm in Southern California. You're in upstate New York. Is Buffalo upstate? I don't even know. I'm sorry. You're in Buffalo, New York.
Well, technically, yes. Upstate New York is what you can call it, but it's technically Western New York if you're here.
Okay.
But upstate New York works for your side of the country.
So you're in Buffalo, New York, and Anna is in Saskatchewan, Canada. My favorite thing was when we had Miguel on, and he created a song for Anna while we were waiting for everything to get going, just off the cuff. This wonderful Elvis Costello inspired song, Anna's in Canada. That was a huge moment in our podcast history that I will always remember and cherish.
One of my favorite moments, it happened episode 2.
We peaked early.
Yeah, we really did. We came hard with it, really. Now, the other thing for you guys to all keep in mind is, and actually, Kelly, you're not always as privy to this, although sometimes you get a taste of it too, but you will send into our group text, okay, hey, we're all set for Wednesday at 6. Okay, great. And then I immediately, boom, side text from Anna. Okay, so is that 8 my time, 9 your time? Or does she mean 6 your time, which is 3 her time, which is really 5 my time? Or is it, so yeah, the being all over the country / 3 different time zones always makes things very, very interesting. And so it's always a lot of fun to be able to do it that way.
We're super cosmopolitan.
Right. Yeah. You know what? We just want to represent a little bit of everything. So, Kelly, I think, we've just had so many different questions about the podcast. Where'd you guys come from? How did it start? Why did you guys do it? And, so I thought that I would take a second and we would drop an episode here where we would catch everybody up on how we got to where we are, why we're doing what we're doing, where the foundation is in getting Bradley's house built, so everybody can know exactly how much we need to step up so we can go ahead and get that house up and built, and the foundation can cut the ribbon on that and start to help people. Because like you said, you could literally be having your favorite musician in 3 years come through there, be able to get help saved, and you'll be able to hear that song that maybe you and your future wife danced to at your wedding, and then you have future babies and probably divorced, but maybe not. not. I don't know. And realistically, this is your way. If you need that to happen, you need to hop on the knowellfamilyfoundation.org and buy a t-shirt so you can help make sure that happens. I mean, that's legit. That's legit. I know people might think that's a little far-fetched, but guys, I'm telling you. I'm just telling you.
It can happen. It can happen. You know, I would be remiss if I also did not mention our wonderful board of directors. So if you wouldn't mind indulging me for a moment,
Please.
I'd love to tell you who they are. So, of course, my dad is our chairman of the board. He is one of the absolute biggest heroes of my life. He is an amazing man. He has been through so much, as any parent who has lost a child can attest. It is a devastating thing, and sadly most people don't recover from it, but he has taken that grief and been very, very open with it, and very, very vulnerable and very generous with his grief, I think. And it, for me, it's helped me to understand a lot about how to deal with my own grief and how to share that with other people so that we can all benefit from it. I learned so much from him. He's an amazing man, and he was always so supportive of Brad and his music and helping Sublime. And then after Brad passed away, he did so much to really make sure that a lot of that music got out. So I can't say enough good things about my father. I feel really, really fortunate to have him as my dad. So he is our chairman of the board. Also, my stepmother, Janie, is on the board, and she's wonderful. She's so great with people. She gives of her time to several other charities as well. She's just a wonderful, warm, very giving person. My nephew, Jacob, Brad's son, is on the board, and I love the fact that we have someone who really represents so much of what we're all about. He is an incredibly talented musician. He's a young and up and coming artist. He's in recovery. He's so well spoken and has handled the pressure of being the son of a well-known person and a well-known musician, and yet he still has his own style and his own identity, and that is such a difficult thing to do. And I'm incredibly proud of him. I could spend an entire episode talking about how wonderful he is, but he's an amazing man who has done incredibly well under a lot of pressure that I think most of us would not have been able to handle. So I have to give it up for him. We also have Todd Zalkins on our board, who was the one who came up with the idea for Bradley's House and really made it happen. I mean, a lot of people have talked about it over the years. Oh, let's do something, let's open a rehab, let's do something. But Todd is the one that made it happen, and I have so much respect for him for that. He works in the recovery industry. He does interventions, works with people when they're at, families who are really struggling in a really difficult time in their life, and he comes in and, when they're in crisis and tries to help, and that takes so much out of him. I don't know how he does it, but so we're super fortunate to have Todd on our board as well. And as I mentioned, we have Brindy Pepper, who has experience in the music industry, and she's also just a Wonder Woman of a human being. Anytime I am at a loss for what to do, or I need help, or I just, need to vent, I go to Brindy. And so if nothing else ever happened out of all of this, I have gained a best friend and a sister in her, and I feel really, really fortunate for that. So, okay, I have to count on my fingers because we have 12 board members, and I feel like I'm going to forget somebody. So we did Dad and Janie and Jacob and Todd and Brindy. Okay, and then that brings us to two brothers that we have on the board, Casey Sullivan and his brother Tyson Sullivan. Casey is an incredible musician. He had a band called Seedless that so many of us here, especially locally, love and remember. And he also is the one who started Burritos, which is a tribute band that really got together initially just to play a show and to donate the proceeds to the foundation. And that was really what kicked off all of the, hey, we could do shows, and we can do benefit shows, and we can, have merchandise and promote at other events. And that all started from Casey saying, hey, what if I pull together some friends and we play some Sublime covers and donate all the proceeds to the foundation? And it was a sellout show. So Anyway, Casey, of course, is a wonderful dear friend, and I've gotten to know his brother Tyson through all of this, who works in the recovery industry and is in recovery himself, and is just a tremendous, powerful advocate for people. So we get lots of requests from people needing help, and obviously, without the house being open yet, we don't want to have to just say, so sorry, too bad. So we've been able to use the knowledge and the experience that Tyson has. And so I refer everybody to Tyson who's looking for help, and he helps them with referrals and recommendations, because as you know, Jarett, there's a lot of people in this industry that are not in it for the right reasons. And so I feel really fortunate that we can help steer and guide people to resources that are worthwhile and that are really in it for the right reasons. So Tyson is such a fabulous resource for that. And then you mentioned one of our guests on our show, Ken Denson, who we are so fortunate to have on our board. He is a tour manager, and he has been a tour manager for a lot of great acts, and currently works with a legacy band, REO Speedwagon. And it's so perfect. Like, he's an incredible human being. He's in recovery. He works in the music industry, and yet he's super humble. Like, you could be standing next to him and never even know, and just think, hey, here's this really nice, great guy, and not realize that he has all these experiences. But I really do believe that's why he's had all those experiences, because he's such a great, humble, relatable person. And he really is one of my favorite people. And I love talking with him because he's so just understated. You'll be talking and all of a sudden be like, so when I was the tour manager for Gwen Stefani, we're like, wait, what? So he always has lots of great stories. Wes Geer is another one of our awesome board members, who he himself, a very accomplished musician, has, toured with all different kinds of bands, and also started his own nonprofit years ago called Rock to Recovery, that I've been fortunate enough to have a personal experience with, because a family member was in recovery, and Rock to Recovery goes into existing treatment programs, and they bring a music program into that, whether it's, once a week, twice a week, whatever, but they come in and they help the people in recovery to really express themselves through music, whether it's writing songs or playing instruments or whatever. And it's so powerful. It really underscores how powerful music is, not just in recovery, but in general, in helping us to process things and deal with things. Music is such a great tool for that. So I feel really fortunate that we have Wes Geer on our board. And then when the whole thing came out with the house that Bradley built, with the album, I was just so blown away with the integrity that Paul Milbury and Yasad Williams both showed through that whole process. There were a lot of hurdles that we had to overcome to make that album happen. And I say we, but really it was them. I mean, they handled it all beautifully. And to me, we're such a beautiful example of what you want to see in the music industry. From the outside looking in, we all think that everybody, must be one big happy family and everyone's all in it to help other people. But sadly, that's not always the case. But I do know 100% without a doubt that is the case with Law Records. And Yasad Williams, of course, the drummer for Pepper, he's incredibly talented. He knows everybody. He's just one of those people that everybody loves to be around. And so he's a connector. He knows people from all different walks of life because he's just a great guy who happens to be an incredibly talented drummer with this awesome band. And so I feel really fortunate to have him on the board as well. So I believe that rounds out our 12. We have my dad, Janie, Jacob, Todd, Brindy, Ken, Wes, Casey, Tyson, Paul, Yasad, and me. There you go. That's our 12 board members. So none of us are doing this because we think that we're all that great. We're really all, every time we get together for a board meeting, we're all like, how can we make this happen? What can we do? How can we encourage people to be a part of it? How can we, add value, create a benefit? And it's a lot of work. It really is. And all the board members, of course, they serve completely on a volunteer basis. And so, they're all very busy people, very talented people, and they don't have to do this, but they do it because of their conviction that it's the right thing to do, their desire to help people who are in recovery, their desire to honor Brad's memory, and because Sublime has meant something to them. And so they're very, very passionate about what they do. And for me, it's really a privilege to be able to be a part of this passionate group of people. But I think it's important for people to know that the people that are making these decisions to, for steering the foundation and where it's going to go and how we're going to get there, they're all people that are in the trenches every day and that understand it. They're people in recovery. They're people in the music industry. They're moms and dads and brothers and sisters, and they're everyday people. And so again, that's just one other aspect where we're all just doing what we can to make it happen. So, whether someone's a board member or whether they make a $5 donation, we're all a part of making this happen.
100%. And, they say if it takes a village, man, what a village you guys have right there. You guys have a pretty awesome lineup. And most of those names that you heard are in our archives. We've had them on the show for either as a guest or to come on and just chat with us. Tyson shared some amazing information about where to find some help. So guys, visit those archives, check out some of the past episodes. It's not all about recovery all the time. We have some amazing Sublime episodes in the archives. We've got some stories that are just some great recovery stories, though, that even if you think, recovery's not my thing, I don't know anybody that went through it, it doesn't affect me. These are amazing stories, just very inspirational stories. So you can check all of those out in the archives. Kelly, please tell me you saw the picture that Todd shared on Facebook today.
Which picture?
A picture of him and a young man who met him.
Saw it.
And was very excited about
meeting the rapist from the date rape video. I figured that's what he was talking about.
And the best part is met the rapist from the date rape video. He was a really nice guy.
That was awesome. I want to meet the guy that made that post. He seems very cool. I just love the genuine enthusiasm and excitement about it. Like, I met the rapist. It's awesome. That was a great post.
Yeah. Well, you know what? But in all fairness, because Todd understands that it's a give and take. There's an ebb and flow, and he was the rapist, but he also was raped in that. So
he was,
it goes both ways. He took a taste of his own medicine. So and he was a real sport for that.
And not to make light, obviously, of raping or being raped, but I do think it's important, to just be able to talk about these things. And that's one thing that I've always loved about that song, Date Rape, is that it just sort of normalizes, way before the Me Too movement, Brad and Sublime were singing about the perils of date rape. And, I think it's a really important part of just getting the conversation out. The more we can talk about those things, the easier it becomes to combat them and to help people who've been a victim of it and to be more understanding of, the whole situation and all that. So, I don't know. I just want to throw that in there. We're not making light of it, but I do love the fact that we're normalizing it, just like we're normalizing talk about addiction, because these things happen. And I think it's important to say, and I know you're always trying to keep things light, and I probably make it too heavy, but yes, that was a funny post. Sorry to bring it back to what your original intent was there. Sorry to get all intense, but that was a great post.
I think it was a great disclaimer, and I would not make light of the Pound Me Too movement.
Absolutely. I'm always worried that people are going to be offended.
They probably are, but you know what? You can't help everybody.
I know. There's a lot of times in our interviews that I'm like, oh my gosh, should we really be saying those things? But I don't think I've ever asked to edit anything out of our shows because I love that it's just real and raw,
I could tell you a few things off air that I had to edit out that you told me. And Kelly, we're doing what the kids call keeping it 100 on this show. I don't know. I don't know if that's still a thing. I don't know if they're still saying that
I
anymore.
feel like it probably isn't, but maybe.
Fuck,
I'll
you know
ask
what?
my
'Cause
kids.
I was just getting ready to start working that 100 emoji into my rotation. I've been holding off on it. And I was just thinking to myself, you know what? It's time. People are going to send me something, and I'm just going to send back, honey.
Yeah. I use it, so it probably isn't what the kids are using anymore by the time it gets to, me. But I'll ask my 18-year-old when he gets home if that's a thing, because he's the one who I learn all of my hip definitions from.
Obviously not, because you just fucking said hip. Okay. So let's just.
Yeah, I'm not.
You know what? Roll credits. That's it.
We're not really going anywhere with this anymore, are we?
No. This is we've nailed this one. So I've had a lot of fun, and I think this has been a really cool update, because again, the show's been picking up a lot of steam, a lot of popularity. Yes. I know there's a lot of people that are just catching on, and sometimes you get busy. You don't get an opportunity to dive back and listen to the previous 15, 16, 18 episodes, whatever it is. So this is a little recap of why we're here, what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, and there are some amazing episodes that if you guys haven't heard them, jump in there. I personally, that 2-part Marshall Goodman episode is one of my favorites. But of course, I do believe that my favorite episode maybe of any podcast that I've ever done was having the honor on episode 1 to share the debut of this show with your dad. Was really just something that I will never forget for my entire life.
Absolutely. That was super special. And I like that it underscores that, we are truly family too. Speaking of which, my youngest son did just walk in, who I was just mentioning. So I can ask him just now, is it hip to use the 100 emoji? No, I can tell by the look he's giving me. I told you, if once I'm using it, it's no longer.
Well, you said hip right off the bat. You turned him cold.
Is it wrong to say hip? Yeah, he's nodding.
Yeah, you said hip right off the bat. You blew it.
I didn't know that. Oh, well.
You should see.
I don't know, because my kids humor me all the time. They're good though.
See, you know what? You have good kids, because my 8-year-old looked at me the other day and went, "Why do you look so old?"
Oh my gosh.
I went, what looks old? You want to know why? Because of you little douchebag. That's why. You and your 2 brothers are breaking down. I used to be a fun, energetic, good-looking, enjoyable kid with money in my pocket, and then you 3 came along and sucked all the joy and money and everything good out of my life. What do you want from McDonald's?
Jarett, we're going to have to cut this part out.
Oh, is this one of those parts that you...
It might be. Yeah, it might be.
You know what? It's therapeutic for me. I'm just
glad we can help.
I'll tell you, there's a few things that don't lie, Kelly, and it's kids in yoga pants. You can't. They are going to tell the truth 100 times out of 100, and that's
they won't use the 100 emoji because that's not hip.
Well, what are the kids saying nowadays, guys?
We didn't get into that. He left the room, so now we'll never know.
Well, you're damn right he left the room, because you said hip. I would have gotten the hell out of there too. Next thing you know, you're going to be putting on Offspring albums. He is smart enough. He got the hell out of there.
Yeah, he's a smart kid.
Guys, you've heard us talk a lot about all of the cool merch. It's all available at the NowellFamilyFoundation.org. You can also follow the Nowell Family Foundation on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the hip social media platforms. You can find updates and things that are going on within the foundation, and there's different pin drops and giveaways and all sorts of neat information that gets shared on there. Of course, you can make donations through Cash App and Venmo. Kelly, what are they again?
On Cash App, we're Nowell Family, and on Venmo, we are Nowell Foundation.
Guys, $1, $2, Every little bit helps to get that much closer to having Bradley's house up and built. Of course, our friends over at law-records.com, they've got that House That Bradley Built album and a bunch of other really cool music too while you're over there. Check out some of the artists. If you guys are listening to this podcast, you probably like a few Law Records artists, I can assure you. So check out what they have going on there. Huge supporters, as Kelly said, of the foundation. We had them on this show. You want to hear how that album came about and some cool stories from that, look up the episode with Paul and Yasad. Certainly don't want to miss that one. Guys, we can't. Yeah, I had so much fun with that one. And we just can't thank you guys enough for your downloads, your shares, your comments. If there's anything that you guys want to hear about, we are always open. You can find us, like I said, on social media. You can also email us at bradleyshousepodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to email any questions, comments, concerns. And just keep sticking here with us, guys. We're having a lot of fun doing this for you. And together, we're all getting that much closer to having Bradley's house open. And I think that's something that we're all looking forward to. Right, Kelly?
Absolutely. And I really hope that as this podcast continues to grow and develop, that it becomes a very group effort. I do want to hear from people as to what guests they want to see on the show, what questions they want asked, what things they want to know, issues they want us to address, so that we're really creating the show that people want to hear. And also, as you mentioned, the whole purpose of doing this podcast is to raise money for the foundation. And we do that not only through getting the word out and people listening and learning about the foundation, but also through our sponsors. And so just by listening to the podcast, people are helping, because the more listeners we have, the more people are interested in sponsoring the show. And if anybody out there is listening and they have a business and they want to become a sponsor, definitely send us an email at bradleyshousepodcast@gmail.com and let us know. We'd love to have you as a sponsor. So again, there's so many ways that people can help out. And I think the most beautiful thing is when everybody just does what they can do, or does what comes easy for them, or what they have a gift for, or what they, we just all pull together our gifts and our talents and our resources and our abilities. And that's what makes it happen. And that's what makes me very excited.
Absolutely, Kelly. You keep lining up great guests for us. I'll make sure to save really cheesy dick jokes for each episode, and we will make sure that we get this thing cranked out and continue to have a lot of fun. Guys, thank you so much. Make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms. Until next week, I am Jarett Orr. She is Kelly Nowell. We're out of time. You don't have to go home, but it's time to leave Bradley's house.
And as in Canada. And it's in Canada. So that's our Ramones. She don't wanna be there, and it's not really fair. And she's gonna come over pretty fair. And it's in Canada. That was Casella. And it's in Canada. She don't wanna be there. She says it's getting kinda old and cold up there. But in the time she tried to come back, they tell her she'll have to wait. And she's always got to fit out of form with an unspecific return day. And it's in Canada. And it's in Canada.